All my life, my nature has been to volunteer, lend a helping hand, make things better, or fix what's broken. Hey everyone, that quote perfectly sums up my guest's life motto. You might remember the phrase, smile, it's Cargile from the last election. That's because my guest ran for Congress in California's 35th district. He's a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a dear friend to many. I've known Mike for quite a few years now, and both my husband Eric and I proudly call him a close friend. Mike has worn many hats over the years: actor, writer, director, producer, editor, and marketing director. He's even helped run an indie music label and managed a rock band from Australia. Before moving to California in 1991, he served a brief stint as a quartermaster army officer after Desert Storm. He comes from a proud family with a deep-rooted history in the U.S. Army. Here in California, he met his beautiful wife, Nan, and together they have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and he's now a proud papa to a lovely granddaughter. Mike has an incredible story to share, one that everyone should hear. So stay tuned as we welcome him to California Charm. Mike Cargile, welcome to California Charm.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I gave that little intro that tells us a little bit about you, but there's a much deeper story here. You and Nan have been through a lot over the past couple of years. Would you mind sharing that with all of our audience?
Sure. I think it's extremely important as well that we get this story out, because there's a lot of people who are suffering pain and they don't know why they're in pain, and it's kind of chronic or body-wise, and they've been misdiagnosed. But for the grace of God, we would be in this place of suffering and ignorance too. But now we know what has been occurring and why it's been occurring. Now we have to try and figure out how to fix this. So the story really starts way back. My son went to Ayala High School and he was a swimmer. In his junior year of high school, he had a growth spurt. And during this time, the structure of his nose changed a little bit and he would get massive headaches. I mean, just so bad that they would have to administer morphine and knock him out because the pain was so incredible. His blood pressure was dangerously high, and he was a nationally ranked swimmer. So we went through all of this stuff for over a year with his doctor, where they would put him on one round of antibiotics and then they would try another thing. And then we learned sort of the inside of the medical industry, because they would ship him around to different specialists, and one would check for, allergies, and one would check for heart and all this. And again, we're talking about a nationally ranked swimmer, which is probably the hardest sport there is. And it's the swimmer's chest and heart rate is incredible. So for him to suffer like this, we couldn't figure out what was going on. And we literally destroyed his immune system over the course of a year with antibiotic. And then 2 weeks later, he was clear. And then 2 weeks after that, which is basically the course of an antibiotic, it would be back. And we would be back in the emergency room. The pain was so incredible. And this kid can handle pain, because before he was in swimming, he was in gymnastics. And gymnasts, they tear everything, break everything, and literally have these blisters on their hands, and they just cut them open, throw some powder on it, and jump back on the bars. They're so tough. So for him to be in this kind of pain, I knew it was bad. And so we fought this for about a year. And finally, I said to this ear, nose doctor who said, come back in a few weeks, we'll do something. I said, listen, if I leave your office here and this happens again, we're going to be in the ER, but I'm going to be in your face. And you don't want that. So you figure out what's going on right now. And so he said, all right, settle down. We'll do a CAT scan. I said, yeah, whatever it takes. I'm not going to do this again. We've been doing this for a year. So then he scheduled a CAT scan. They put this 3D device on his head, and he goes, oh my gosh, his nose has grown during this growth spurt, and it has shut off his sinuses on the left side of his face. So they can't drain. So then they hit him with antibiotics, but it comes right back because it can't drain out of his head. So they did a surgery and they moved his nose over, roto-rooted it all out, but the damage had been done. So then he's in rehab basically for the next year, still trying to swim, and he's swimming at a caliber where he's offered a scholarship to go swim. He's still fighting it that hard and overcoming it. But then 2 years ago, he went and visited a buddy up in Alaska, and he came back with a massive ear infection. Don't know how he got it, maybe on the plane or something. And that was so bad. And he said the pain was so bad, and he related it to his nose. So I thought, oh, this is not good at all. And his eardrum burst and drained out. The pain was so bad, had to have been. And so as a precaution, we took him back to another, ear, nose, throat guy, and he gave him an antibiotic, one pill. He prescribed 7 of these. And this pill is in a family of antibiotics. They're fluoride based, and it's called fluoroquinolone. And a lot of people use fluoroquinolone antibiotics.
Can you spell that just because people are going to ask?
Yeah, fluoroquinolone, fluoroquinolone. But most people know the antibiotic Cipro. A lot of women will take that for urinary tract infection. Levaquin, Avelox is another one. And these are common names for the same antibiotic family. The worst is Levaquin, and that's what he gave to my son. Gave him 7 pills. Garrett took 1 pill, and it's destroyed his life. And
Mike, can I ask you, did the doctor tell him that there would be some side effects of this medication?
No, not only did the doctor not warn us, and we've subsequently learned that there's a black box label on these antibiotics. They're banned in Europe, but they're given out like candy here in the United States. Not only did the doctor not warn us of potential side effects, but neither did the pharmacist. They just said, take it with food.
How old was he when the infections first started? Probably high school?
He was a sophomore in high school. He's graduated college. He's 25 years old, just turned 25. So the last 2 years, he's been incapacitated. What happens is this antibiotic, this is why it's banned in Europe, is it attacks the mitochondria in your body. Mitochondria create energy, and there are different types of it. And the mitochondria that create energy for collagen, which your tendons and your ligaments have to have, or they become brittle. They actually will become porous and develop little rips and tears and holes. And there's no elasticity without collagen. But if you're targeting, and this is what they do, it targets the bacteria, the DNA of the bacteria. But if it goes to the host, it also targets the DNA of the mitochondria that produce collagen. So it immediately attacked his tendons. 30 minutes after this 1 pill, he couldn't move. And you could see his tendons in his arms and his legs bulging, and he couldn't move. So I don't know what's going on. And we found out, this is a side effect, a known side effect of this family of antibiotics. Since then, we've gone to multiple specialists. One of them is the doctor for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in Beverly Hills. And it turns out this is the focus of his practice because he did the same thing. Right out of medical school, he took 2 of these, and for the next year and a half was in a wheelchair. And he said, I'm devoting my life to this. So his practice is, stem cells and peptides and all kinds of infusions and stuff. And we've learned a whole lot of the world of health and regenerative medicine outside of mainstream. And I had a conversation about a month ago with a big doctor who's also specializing in this. And I won't name the university she's part of because this is a bad thing because the medical community has created this problem and they don't want to recognize it because they don't want to be responsible for it. So she's looking at this. This is called FQAD. Fluoroquinolone associated damage, fluoroquinolone FQAD. And she's specializing in FQAD, but she can't tell her peers at the university medical center because they will shun her because they know this is something, but they don't want to recognize it. And it's now just recently been recognized by the CDC as something real. And that's because of Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy and the doctor who my son goes to, Dr. G, we call him, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that are suffering this. And I said to the doctor, my guess, looking at what my son's going through, and I'm looking at other people, they call them floxies, people who've been hit with this antibiotic. But I said, I'm guessing that there are a lot of people out there being diagnosed with something called fibromyalgia, and they're given all kinds of medication because it's just generalized generalized pain. And I said, my guess is people are being diagnosed with fibromyalgia when they're really they're victims of FQAD, this antibiotic. And she said, you're right. She said, there are a lot of people, they don't know why they're in such pain, and they don't know to go look at their medical history and see, oh yeah, I had an earache, or I had some bout of something, and I had a bunch of antibiotics. And then I developed this pain. I don't know what the pain is. And they go, well, it's just general pain. That's fibromyalgia. So what do? They give them pain medication, and they give them steroid. And these things only exacerbate the problem. They make it worse. And so the medical community owe the general community of victims, and this is enormous.
Is he still prescribing this, or did he say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore?
Today, they're still prescribing this.
Today they still are.
Yes. And you can't sue them because they're giving them out according to the CDC and the medical community's guidelines. It's not been taken off the shelf here. It's banned in Europe. So my guess is we're approaching a threshold where there are enough people injured that they're going to create something to treat them with and make money. And that's what they do. They create a problem that they can now fix, and they'll sell you or your insurance company a very expensive fix for the problem they created.
What a shame.
And I think that's happened over and over. I think that's the same thing with cancer.
Probably.
I think there are many cures because there's no single kind of cancer. There's many cures for different types of cancer, but there's no money in curing it. There's only money in treating it. And so
this doctor that had the same thing that Garrett has, the same symptoms, but now he doesn't have them anymore. And you said he was kind of sick for a year and a half with the same symptoms as Garrett?
He had through stem cells, many stem cell treatments, and this kind of a custom cocktail of peptides and other stuff that he actually can't get here in California. He has to get it in other states and bring it here. But he still has to inject himself periodically because once you've destroyed the DNA or the RNA we're dealing with here, once you've destroyed that, a damaged cell will then replicate another damaged cell. Your body, the good cells create good cells, bad cells create bad cells. This is cancer. So people, when we're talking about cancer, people have this mistaken identity or idea that cancer is somehow a foreign entity that you have to cut it out or hit it with a laser or hit it with chemo.
And it's not?
It's not, because every cell in a tumor is your cell. It's not a foreign invader. It came from you, but something happened in your life where you didn't have cancer. And then because of diet and lifestyle or environmental influences, a cell went nuts. It metastasized or created other cells that are nuts as well. And now you have this mass of cells, and it's called a tumor. But that tumor is not a foreign invader. It's your cells. It's in you, and it came from you. So then the question we have to ask is, what changed in you that allowed this to occur? Because usually through your life, your immune system would see that crazy cell and go, we got to get this out of here. And it would, whatever it did, and it would get rid of it. But somehow something changed. And we know now through diet, through lifestyle, through environmental factors, stuff they're spraying in the air, stuff in our water, in our food, that we are destroying our ability or our immune system. So people are now getting cancer at rapid rates. And they're called turbo cancers because once you get it, that metastasization takes place very rapidly. And people are getting diagnosed with cancer, and 2 to 3 months later, they're dead. Because once it hits your lymphatic system, it's throughout your whole body, and there's really nothing you can do about it.
Oh, man.
So we have to have a radical discussion about our healthcare system, what's being done. In my son's case, we're doing everything we can. We discovered there in his treatment, he met a young lady who had the same issue, and she went away from everything that we were doing and started really looking at, how do I reboot my body's system?
Did you find a way?
Yes. So she found this thing. It's called Fred's methylation system. FREDDS. And so what we had to do was take a genetic test, and it's a methylation panel. Methylation just means to break something down. So what we discovered is most people, up to half the people, are ingesting all kinds of fake stuff in their food and our water and everything. The worst is folic acid. So folic acid is sprayed on everything with grains, and it's in our bread, it's in our rice, it's in everything. And it's a joke why that's there, because there was a condition called spina bifida, where the person was born with their spine on the outside. And they said, well, this will fix it because these undeveloped countries didn't have folic acid. That was the excuse to spray everything with folic acid. Half the population can't break down or methylate folic acid. So when you eat something you can't break down, it just sort of clumps up in your system and bogs everything down. And then at certain points, now it develops this massive inflammation around something it can't break down. And suddenly you have cancer.
So Garrett took this test.
So we took the methylation protocol, and turns out he was just a perfect example of a horrific combination of gene mutations and things that won't allow his body to break down a bunch of stuff. And it made him very susceptible. And so we did this methylation panel. You have to go to either a genetic specialist who really understands this. And most of them poo-poo this because they don't think, it's not part of Western medicine's, traditional, avenues of healing. And you know where we go for our diagnosis, or who curates this protocol? ChatGPT.
Really?
Yes. So, I wouldn't go to ChatGPT for moral guidance.
No.
But it knows, it's got the wealth of the world. And so you enter all of this data, and it's really quite amazing. You take this PDF of your whole genetic profile, enter it into ChatGPT, and say, I want to follow the Fred's methylation protocol. And it's not easy. It's going to take a year and a half. We're only about 6 months in right now.
So what are you doing with Garrett then? What are you doing? I know the folic acid, so he doesn't have any folic acid.
No folic acid. But what ChatGPT then does, it says, based on these genetic markers, you need B2, B12, B6, methylation. Just our kitchen counter looks like this pharmacy of supplements, and they're designed to detox certain things out, because when you got a bad cell creating bad mitochondria, your body needs to flush it. So we need to detox and flush bad stuff, and then help it build the good stuff. And you hope that there is more good stuff being created than bad stuff being expelled. So you should see, he takes supplements all day long. Just a whole host of, and then you got to rebuild the gut. So collagen and colostrum and on all of these things all day long. And then on top of that, so mitochondria create energy. That's really, it's ATP energy, adenosine triphosphate. So we need energy in his body. So we've got stuff coming in through what he eats and drinks. And then another source of energy, we got this thing called a PEMF mat.
I've heard of that.
Which is, basically electromagnetic energy going into your body. So he lays on this thing 3 times a day. And then we're using red light therapy to also increase energy to mitochondria growth. So we're hoping to stimulate the good mitochondria while his body's flushing the bad mitochondria.
Have you noticed a difference at all?
Well, it seems like we've arrested or stopped the deterioration that was going on.
That's great.
So he, when he first started out, it was his arms and his legs, and then it was his back. And the last 4 months, it's been his neck. And so he's been missing the collagen in the ligaments that hold his skull up. So the weight of his skull on his neck is painful. So he walks around the house. He's either got a neck brace on, or you see him with his fist under his chin to take the weight off of his neck. Can't drive. He can't walk for, very far, or else his tendons on his legs and his arms hurt. So, and again, we're talking about a kid who's 25 years old.
Just at the beginning of his life.
Nationally ranked swimmer, just tough as nails. And, as bad as that may sound, thank God we're where we are, because we now have been introduced to people who are much, much worse and with the same antibiotics. Their retinas detach because the soft tissue won't hold it. And it's so we're blessed. God has blessed us with money to be able to afford these treatments and to do stuff, and mainly to be around people who can point us to certain things. We're looking to restart, basically flush out everything and restart his genetic structure with this methylation protocol. But it is not easy. And sometimes it's really kind of painful, and it messes with his head. Sometimes it's just cloudy head. Sometimes it's depression, and it's all being induced. But we were told this is the road you've got to travel, because your body's got to get rid of all this horrific stuff that was put in, through the first 22 years of his life.
So I know you want this message to get out to a lot of people. What is the message you want them to know? Tell me, what do you want them to understand about this?
Well, first of all, probably somebody in your life that is in a lot of pain physically, and they don't know why. And I really would highly recommend they check, when did the pain start and what were you doing? Were you on? Because my guess is, and I've had this confirmed with multiple people, I was sick. I had the flu. I took a bunch of this, and there you go. Now we know the culprit, and now we know you're not suffering needlessly. There's actually a reason you're in pain, or your aunt is in pain, or your grandmother is in pain, and they can't walk, and they just chalk it up to, I've lived a life, and and I know this because I've talked to these people. I thought I was just going to be in pain the rest of my life. No, there's a reason for your pain, and we've got to really lean on our medical community. And I want to become more vocal with Bobby Kennedy and these guys, because the same people that created this problem need to find out a way to fix it.
Do you feel there's hope?
Always hope. There's always hope. And I think this methylation protocol may be it. I don't know yet. We're going to find out. Ultimately, according to our doctor, the solution needs to be like stem cells, where they can extract good mitochondria from you, grow it, replicate it, and then put it back in. But that technology doesn't exist as of today. They can do it with stem cells, but they still don't know how to do it with mitochondria. And if we can do that, and I know there's research being done, because the same issue applies to arthritis, which is a mitochondrial deficiency, cancer, same sort of thing. So I'm hopeful the medical community and the research communities will all get together and go, this is bad. And if we can fix the mitochondrial issue, then it's going to take care of a whole host of issues that people are suffering from. But we have to start getting people together, talking. I know this person. I know that person. I know there are online communities of people, I already call them floxies, people who have been damaged. But I think that there's still so many people suffering in silence. And I know of a kid who he had this and was in horrible pain. His wife didn't believe him. And she said, suck it up, get tough. Everybody's had antibiotics and we all have pain. And finally, one day he just put a gun in his mouth and blew his head off, because no one would believe him. And the amount of pain he was in, he just couldn't cope with. And that's horrific, because hopefully we can figure out how to fix this.
Are you thinking about running again?
Yes, I am. I know
it's a lot of work with Garrett. Well, can you imagine if this next one you got in and you had a platform that's even bigger, what you could do with what you're going through right now? I believe something good's going to come out of this, but that's me being optimistic, but I do believe it. Well, I know this message is going out. Can people somehow get a hold of you? I mean, what if this has happened to them?
Sure.
Do you have someplace?
Yeah, they can send me an email. It's simple. My name is Mike Cargile, and you spell that Cargile. So Mike.Cargile@outlook.com.
Because I know that there are some people out there that are going to need to hear this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you said at the beginning, I came up with the most ridiculous catchphrase in the country: smile. It's Cargile. That way you don't forget it. And then, please, if you know somebody, doesn't have to be a family member. I guarantee you someone listening to this knows somebody who's suffering in chronic pain and they don't know why. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can help them.
Well, let's send this out then. So Mike Cargile, I so appreciate you coming into studio and being on California Charm. And let's get this message out there, because like me, Mike Cargile believes that the best is yet to come also. Thanks so much for listening today, guys. You can reach Mike Cargile at MikeCargileOutlook.com. You can also reach me at California Charm Podcast on Instagram, Podbeam, and Apple Music. And don't forget, the best is yet to come.